ChatGPT Plus is free for college students through May. Here's the thing. You've got a lot to do between now and then. Studying for finals, writing papers, trying to keep your life on track, and ChatGPT can help with all of it. It can quiz you for your econ exam, make a study guide from your French notes, plan out your meals and study breaks. It can get really specific on how you like to learn. It can even help you come up with ways to stop procrastinating. So from now until summer break, take advantage of all the ways ChatGPT can make your life easier. Restrictions apply.
Da 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 da! You sound insane. You realize that? Yeah. The whole world gone crazy. Seriously? Yeah. It's showtime.
It's been 4,012 days, or 10 years, 11 months, 25 days, whichever way you want to look at it.
Break it down into minutes.
Measure 10 years.
We measure it in Infinity Stones, Iron Man suits, references, Easter eggs. We're gonna get to it all. This
Loki
is
deaths.
right. This is the culmination of 22 movies of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and to join us in our breakdown is a visitor from the Piss Jar Cinematic Universe, Shane, Batman Shane. Hey, man.
Hey, guys. I'm stepping across the street from the distinguished competition, as they say, and happy to be here to talk a little Avengers with you guys. Always good to be here.
I don't know if the word distinguished has ever been thrown around, but
a lot of CrossFit over on that side. This side,
a lot of chain wallets.
A little more relaxed.
A lot of jars of urine, and
Yeah, I'm bench pressing. I'm bench pressing right now. So if there's like some audio interference, that's the weights, bro.
No, that's fair. That's fair.
I had the great pleasure of seeing Avengers Endgame with Batman Shane.
Hawkeye Shane.
Yeah, Vision Shane. And he looked pretty yoked. So just put it out there.
Good. We can only hope. Well, this is a long time coming, and we have a lot to discuss tonight. We're not sticking to the normal Mad About Movies format. It's all Avengers Endgame tonight. No movie news. Maybe a recommend at the end, but probably not. We'll probably be exhausted. And a lot to talk about. And I think the perfect place to start with this conversation is just talk about the release, talk about the box office, I would say,
holy cow,
record. I don't know if that's the correct word, but I just kind of want to go over what a feat it was this past weekend, just to kind of put in context what we're going to talk about. Aside from narratively what it means, and how they've woven these characters together, and they've done all this thing. This hugely complex thing of bringing back all these beloved characters and things like that. But just the ability to capture an audience this wide is incredible. And when we were talking about it on the AMA last week in the VIP, madaboutmoviespodcast.com/VIP, where we do a monthly AMA. Brian and I were talking about kind of projections for this.
Yeah, and
I thought I overshot it. My projection was like, it'll probably be a little bit less. But but I was like 283. That was my guess.
Okay.
283.
Yeah, I said 300, and I felt like I was out on a limb.
I should be on all these business. I knew it was going over 300 just from the hype. I'm mad that my power was out, and I was working. Good times. I would have yelled at you guys. I would have gotten you guys both over 300. We would have been smarter. Oh, well.
Yeah,
you win some, you lose some.
The record was 257. That's the thing.
That's the thing. It's like it never even come close in the history of cinema before.
Yeah. And Brian, 257, was that Force Awakens or was that Last Jedi?
It was Infinity Wars.
Yeah, that's why I knew.
Okay. Well, sure enough.
I figured this one would have 40 or like 30% growth on that, just because it's the end, quote unquote. And plus, I could just tell, like, the thing of random old people asking me about it, like, oh, this is a thing.
Sure.
You know what I mean? That test where it's not just comic book people and all that. Man, it's great. But I wouldn't have guessed this high. That's crazy what it is. It's going to keep going too. I mean, it's
right. It's still going to be in theaters after this weekend, so I think it'll be.
Was it a one-time only thing? Wow.
You know what? It probably could have been.
Trick me.
let's just put this into more context. I've got a little bit more breakdown here of the numbers. So worldwide for the 4 days, starting with Thursday, the worldwide gross total is 1.2 billion.
Gracious.
That smashes the past record. The records that it broke is biggest Thursday night preview ever, which was 60 million. The previous was Star Wars The Force Awakens at 57 million.
No, okay. I thought it was Ghostbusters. The new one.
Oh, Answer the Call. I only know that as Answer the Call. I don't.
That one didn't even come out
associate
in
that with the term Ghostbusters.
And just if I may jump in for half a second, because this statistic always impresses me. Just for the viewers that are interested, 1 million seconds, if you were to time it out, is about 12 days, give or take. 1 billion seconds is 31.7 years. That's the difference between 1 million and 1 billion. Yeah. So, just so that people, when a movie makes $20 million versus $1 billion, yeah.
That's quite, that's exactly right. Just to put it in perspective, actually, I'm going to get to that here in a second. But the previous Thursday night preview record was The Force Awakens, and it beat that. Biggest Friday opening ever is 156, so it made 156 in the 24 hours of Friday. Previous was The Force Awakens at 119, so it beat that by almost $50 million. Biggest Saturday ever, 109 million. Previous was Avengers Infinity War, and it beat that by 30 million. The biggest Sunday ever as well. And this is all domestic, by the way, domestic totals. Sure. 84 million today. The previous was Infinity War at 70 million. And the biggest 5-day total of all time, 350 million. The previous record is The Force Awakens at 325 for the total 5-day record. It's the 8th film in 2019. Actually, it's the second in 2019 to cross $1 billion. Yeah. The first being Captain Marvel, and so it's made more than Captain Marvel already in its total gross in the first 5 days.
Yeah, worldwide, it is the 18th highest grossing movie of all time in 3 days, 4 days, whatever.
Wow.
That's insane.
It's the 8th Marvel Studios film to cross $1 billion. The third directed by the Russos, starting with Captain America Civil War, Avengers Infinity War, and Avengers Endgame. And I saw, as of earlier today, it's already in the top 50 of all time in U.S. total domestic gross. So it's already the 50th most in the top 50 most successful films to ever be released in the U.S. in terms of money. And
to Brian's point, though, shame they're going to pull it from theaters this weekend. So this is it, guys. It's not going to do any better. And
it's like one of those concerts that they show for one night only. Get in there.
This is a Fathom Events,
Here's a question: how much more money would it have made if they said we're only showing it for these 5 days? Would it have made $2 billion in a weekend?
I mean, maybe, but at a certain point, you run out of.
It would have been physically impossible. It would have been physically impossible to make more than it did. I went to a pretty early screening today, and it was completely packed to the gills. Not one seat early on a weekend open for this. I live very close to a theater, blocks from a theater, and I texted you guys on Thursday night that people were parking in my apartment parking garage to go to see Avengers because the parking lot was so full that they had overflow parking multiple blocks away for it.
Can't call the cops on every single one.
I did. I was like,
they all got towed. Hope it was worth it.
There was.
Sorry, me and Costas Antetokounmpo needed to go see it together. My close personal friend.
My neighbor, yeah. My Texas Legends in FC Dallas scout team.
Texas legend.
Yeah. It's incredible. I mean, I compared it last week with Brian to The Force Awakens, saying that was the last time I remember for a month straight driving home and passing the theater by my house, and every day for a month the theater was packed to the gills. The parking lot, not one parking spot. And I'm talking I would drive by that thing at 2:00 on a Wednesday, and it would be packed. I was like, this is something else. But
I got two invitations today hey, I'm going to go see this again on Monday.
Oh, wow.
Like at 11 or something if you want to go. I'm like, I got to work, but...
You've got to start getting friends with jobs, I'm telling you. I told you this. Be better for you. I just mean for you, even, selfishly.
Exactly. We talked about Avatar a little bit previously, and that it's number one of all time with $2.7 billion. And the real... I guess outlier with Avatar was that it was in theaters just so long.
Yeah,
right.
It was in theaters basically from Christmas until like the next fall, and then more after that. After the Oscar push came, they put it back in theaters. But I vividly remember like in August of the next year going and seeing Avatar in theaters.
It was such a spectacle, too.
Yeah.
It was like, hey, we're bored. Let's go look at that cool 3D stuff. I don't know if the new ones will have that same pull.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe they will. Maybe he'll develop the technology where they do. But
that's why we talked about. I knew we all said that this would be definitely the biggest opening ever. It's still, I don't know if this is going to be the biggest movie ever, and it's all said and done. But because
the repeat views, we'll see.
I mean, repeat views we'll see, but I feel like a lot of people will be like, all right, I did it, I experienced it, I'm good. You know, I don't know if this is going to have the like, oh, you got to see this quality that Avatar had, because it was so different and out there. I feel like the MCU fans will eat this up for 2 weeks, and then I don't know if they'll be in 3 months. Are they going to still be beating down the doors to go see this? I don't know. And really, like we talked about earlier too, is that Disney has to pull back the reins on this because they got other movies coming out. They got Aladdin, they got Spider-Man, they've got Lion King, Toy Story, and all these movies to promote and clear out theaters for. That they're really the only thing stopping this movie from being the biggest movie of all time is Disney. So,
yeah.
So
I
incredible.
feel like it's pretty. I feel pretty good about it's going to be numbered. It'll pass Titanic. It's that last half billion that's the real trouble to get up to Avatar. But you're totally right, Kent. It's, if anything, I mean, they did this with Force Awakens. Disney did. They kind of pulled back at a certain point to clear theaters and get you ready for the DVD release and every other movie that's coming out and stuff. So I don't know if Disney will push it when they know. I don't think they care about Aladdin at this point. But Toy Story and Spider-Man and Lion King and stuff, that may be a factor in that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So what was your experience like, the screening, before we get into general thoughts? We'll save some spoilers. If there's anybody listening to this that has not seen Endgame, I don't think there's anybody that exists anymore that hasn't seen it, in the U.S. at least. We're going to get a lot into spoilers tonight, so I suggest listening to this after you've seen the movie, if you can, because there's a lot we can't talk about here, where they go from here, what this all means without spoilers. So we're going to be a lot more spoiler heavy than we normally are, and just to be forewarned. So, Brian, what was your screening like? You said you went Thursday night. You went with your kid. What was that experience like?
Man, I went Friday right after school. Friday was my kid's birthday. I would have taken him Thursday, but it's like a 3-hour movie, and they didn't start till 7. I really thought about letting him stay home from school on Friday, but ultimately my wife won, and so he went to school Friday. We went to see it pretty much as soon as he got out of school. Packed theater. Really high quality theater experience. We talk about this all the time, of how the theater atmosphere and environment and stuff really has gone downhill over the time that we've been doing this podcast, and it has become kind of a beating in many ways. I love showing up to a theater and there's just nobody else there. It makes my day. It typically turns out to be a better experience for our purposes, of going to see these movies, so that then we could talk about them on fake radio for an hour or whatever. But this is one of those where you want a crowd that gets it. You want people that are really into it and excited. And so we lucked out. Our audience was really into it. There was no loud talking amongst ourselves. There was no crazy phone conversations or any of that stuff. It turned out to be a very good experience. My kid had a blast. he was super into it. That always helps. But I'll say, like, for me, I've been excited about this for a long time. Obviously, I love these movies and have rewatched them dozens of times probably over the years. It was kind of similar to my experience with Force Awakens. Force Awakens, I sat down, I was so pumped. I'd been just on a high for the like month leading up to this movie, and then I had this moment of, right as it started, I had this moment of panic of like, oh my gosh, what if this is bad? What am I going to do if this movie turns out to be bad? And then it was overwhelmed pretty quickly by how much, how good that movie is and how much I love it. This was kind of similar. It was like not quite the same for me. It's not the same love as I have for Star Wars, but it has taken up a lot of my movie watching life over the last 10 years. And as soon as it started, it hit me again of like, dude, if this sucks, like, will all of this be for naught? Will this all feel cheapened if this last movie is of lesser quality? And we haven't talked about it at all. I have no idea how you guys feel about the movie, which is great. Will make for a good show, but within about 5 minutes, I was like, no, this is good. I'm in. I like where we're going with this. I was much more emotional with this than I was with any of the previous MCU movies. You guys all know I'm a very easy movie crier, but I don't think I'd ever really gotten choked up in a Marvel movie. And this one, I felt like I was going to be crying like half the time. It was ridiculous. But the Russos, I think, did an absolutely incredible job of putting this whole thing together. And to sit in a theater with 300 other people who were all there for the same reason. I don't know. This doesn't seem like a movie that you're going to go hate watch. It doesn't seem, I don't know. It just seems like people, it was like a community event almost, which was cool. And it added to the kind of the spectacle of it. So we had a great showing. I thought the movie has flaws, sure, but I think it is one of the greater achievements in, I mean, I don't want to oversell it, but it feels to me like one of the greater achievements in film history, certainly in blockbuster history. And it was a great show. I wish I could have got to it again before the podcast, honestly. But yeah, I loved it. Loved it.
Awesome. Anything you guys want to share, Batman, Shane, and Richard, about your theater experience before we start getting into some general thoughts here?
The guy next to me was a real...
Or Shane, tell us a little bit about... Shane, for people who are regular listeners of the show, they know you from all of our DC episodes. Every DC movie we've done for at least the past 2 years, you've been on the episode. But what's your thoughts on the MCU? Because we know how passionate you are about Batman and all things related with, jars of excrement. But do you love these movies, or are you...
The MCU is the worst, and I absolutely hate it. No, guys, of course not. I love the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I love Marvel movies, too. I love superheroes, and I love comic books. And generally, when I read comics, I prefer DC. But when it comes to Marvel movies, I mean, I love these. I love these just as much as everybody else, and I think Marvel is absolutely fantastic. So I was just as excited for Endgame as everybody else was. I will say, though, has anybody else seen Endgame twice? Am I the only person that...
I am not, no.
Okay. I saw it twice just because I saw it in Texas with Richard, and then I saw it with my wife this afternoon. But yeah, so I will say I was surprised, and Richard, back me up if you feel differently, but I was surprised that our audience was fairly muted. Yeah. There was a number of moments in this film, and we'll get into that when we get into spoiler territory, that were specifically designed for a crowd reaction, and our crowd was like totally silent throughout most of the movie. Totally. Which is fine,
except for the woman next to me who was silent for the most part, but then every time a character came on, I don't know if you could hear this, Shane, but I was going insane because I hate humans. And every time a character would come on, she'd go, "Oh yeah, that's Ant-Man." "Oh yeah, okay." And I forgot about this. This is the funniest part. I knew I needed to sleep. This woman was this made me so happy, but as a Michael Clayton fan, I was outraged. She hated Tilda Swinton so much. She didn't say anything hardly for a while, and then when that little vignette of, we'll talk about it, spoilery, but the Doctor Strange guru comes on, or whatever that character's name is, I don't do names. She was like, "Oh no, oh my, I hate you so much, I hate you, God, I hate you. Just get off the screen. God, don't talk to him. Don't give him the stone. Just give him the stone." I'm serious. I'm not exaggerating at all. And then just back to silence for another 30 minutes. It was so weird. But
I did not hear that, but I think I'm also partially going deaf, so who knows? Maybe it was audible enough that it ruined the movie for other people. But it didn't bother me. But no, that was my reaction, Kent. I was kind of surprised that the multiple moments throughout this film that I saw it with on a Friday night opening weekend, they didn't really audibly react, and I was kind of surprised by that.
I thought there'd be an ovation. I hate movie ovations because it's been covered by every comedian ever. The producers and filmmakers in the film are not there to hear your ovation, but if anything warranted like a hey, thanks for the 11 years of entertainment or whatever, I thought it would get that. Like, okay, cool, and then just nothing. And then it was weird. We had a really muted crowd. You're right.
Yeah. Which is fine, because there were also no crying babies.
Yeah.
No awful children. So, you win some, you lose some. But
that was for me, though. I actually had to, my judge made sure there weren't any there.
Yeah. You weren't allowed.
That's the perk of going to the movies with me.
350 yards, yeah. So.
Yeah, it's a special screening,
yeah.
Jane. You're welcome.
That's true. I had a very similar experience to you guys, Shane and Richard, in mine. My crowd was extremely somber. From almost second one of the movie. I mean, granted, the movie starts on a very somber note and sets the tone for kind of what to expect, but there are moments with characters that are purely there for comic relief, I believe, not really kind of the character arc type things, and that stuff worked okay, but for the most part, yeah. And when the film ended, no clapping. You could tell there was like one guy who was thinking about it. You can always kind of tell that.
Come on, let's go, Columbus.
Kind of half clapped, but
there's always one guy who's
he was
desperately trying to start a slow clap.
To start it, and then no one reacted, and so
nobody.
But no.
Okay, yeah, no.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I mean, other than that, there was like a 4-year-old, or a sub 3-year-old in there that was like, "I'm about party." I'm like, okay, well, this kid clearly knows nothing about quantum mechanics, so we need to get him out of the theater. Like he's a waste of space at this point. But yeah, no, it was good. I would say it was a respectful screening. That's kind of what I wanted, was everybody to realize we're all here to see the movie and to experience this and not really ruin it for anybody. And I didn't get that vibe at all. And it was a very memorable experience. I would say that from a screening perspective. Now, let's talk about the movie. I'd said with Infinity War that there was almost no chance that it would live up to the hype. It was almost impossible for it to live up to the hype, right? Given the amount of people out there that have their own ideas in their head of what they want to happen and their version of how the MCU pans out. And I thought, for the most part, go back and listen to our Infinity War review at length if you would like, but that it accomplished that. It met the expectation, and that's what I thought was impossible, was just meeting the expectation. I went into Avengers Endgame with high expectations. Honestly, if we're talking about character deaths, I thought everything was on the table. I was not prepared to be emotional or surprised about anything that was going to happen in the movie because of certain things I felt like were going to be in here just for shock value because it is the last one. But that ended up not being the case at all. And I was just extremely blown away at the level of difficulty, the risks that they took with this film. A lot of people will say, "Oh, this is a great blockbuster that reached the masses, that appealed to everybody, that hit all these, every demographic was pleased." Well, this movie took so many risks with the way they went about it. I mean, I was just blown away that they went this direction and that almost every choice they made worked. Not all of them worked for me personally, but I was like just blown away at how many things. I was like, wow, I didn't see that coming, but I like it, you know? And that is unexpected. And I just thought, man, the level of stress that the Russos must have been under to get this thing done, and for it to be good, let alone, you know, to please the billion people worldwide that have an expectation in their mind of what they want it to be, is incredible. So, and I think it's just a cinematic masterpiece of a film. I mean, it just looks incredible. It's got certain elements of almost every genre that they've thrown at us. I mean, it's nostalgic. It's stripped down in terms of its scale, but also the most epic movie that they've ever done. So that's amazing. And it really just comes down to the characters. You know, these characters that we love. I was thinking about all the character arcs that come full circle in this film or come to fruition that we've been waiting for, and I was just blown away.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to talk about it, you know, more specifically, of course, but just you name the character, you can just see in this movie how it's all come full circle from like the first incarnations of like putting these characters into these movies to now. You really just see, wow, it's all they've learned from their experiences. They're better or they're worse for it, and it's all just like the arc has all. It's not just the characters that are quote unquote, you know, dying or important or whatever. It's every like side character too has all these side things that all work, you know. And so I was just extremely blown away by this. I thought it was excellent. I have complaints with it, but I was just blown away by this, and I thought it was better than Infinity War for the first time around, just because the level of difficulty and the emotional involvement that I have in the MCU. So I was blown away. What did you guys think, Brian?
Yeah, I'm with you. I already did a little bit of that, so I'll pass it off quickly. But
yeah,
I'm 100% with you, Kent. That was the achievement of this is something I don't think we'll ever see this again. And that kind of, man, 21 films to get to this, and for them to find the time and the appropriateness to kind of tie off every string that has been spun throughout, you know, the course of this whole series, and to do it in fitting ways, in touching ways, in funny ways, and then also to connect characters that haven't really been connected before. You know, it just turns into a team-up movie for a while, and it's almost all of those pairings are odd or different or have an extra element to them and stuff, and it's just, that's kind of incredible that they were able to do all this stuff. You know, I go back this week, I watched a lot of these movies and I wrote about them, and I mean, they really have dominated our cultural zeitgeist for the last decade. So I really thought about them a lot. I think Joss Whedon's Avengers, at the time especially, I thought that was such a risky movie. Like, so much could have gone wrong with that movie, and he really pulled off something special. That movie looks like amateur hour compared to this, just in terms of the complexity and the difficulty of making all this happen.
That's the comparison I was making, is like, by comparison to this, that's a safe movie. Like, that's the crowd pleasing, like, play it safe, just throw it out there and make money kind of movie, right? Yeah.
And I mean, look, you can. There's certainly elements of that in this movie, of course. You know, one of our listeners sent us like I can't remember if it was Twitter or Facebook or whatever, but a message just been like, it just felt a little fan service. It felt like there was a lot of fan service, and I was like, well, yeah, of course there was. Of course there was a lot of fan service. Like, and I don't mean that against, you know, the guy that sent that quote. It's because that's what this whole thing is building to this incredible, ridiculous culmination of all of these movies coming together. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of fan service in it. It's just I don't know. Like that's to me is like it's an easy way to kind of just say, well, it wasn't that good. It's very fan service. Well, yeah, of course it was. Just do it well. And it's amazing how well they did it. So yes, there are things, there are flaws, there are gaps in the logic in places and things like that. And as almost any blockbuster kind of movie has, but this just, it just feels like the difficulty level on a normal superhero movie is like a 70 out of 100 at most, and for the really special ones, Captain Marvel in a way had real stakes to it. Like it mattered. Black Panther mattered. Batman Begins mattered. That kind of movie, maybe it's like a 90 out of 100. This is like 190 out of, you know what I mean? Like it blows that scale away. It's just
when Marvel sits the Russos down, it's like, all right, well, here's every character that has to be in it. Here's every plot line we're setting up for the next.
Right. It's an impossible task.
17 years of films. Here's all the Disney Plus series that are going to happen that have to, it's incredible. Yeah, you're right.
I love logistics. Like my brain really, I can figure logistics out very well. Like I enjoy the puzzle of that. This would make me insane. Like I would be ripping my face off. Like it's such a difficult task. I said it's impossible. It's not impossible to make this movie and have it make a ton of money and be generally well received. It is impossible to have made it this good, make this much money, be this well received, and set everything up, moving forward. It's just a remarkable task. I don't know. I'm blown away. I walked out of the theater like, man, that was fun. I really liked it. I had a great time with it. I was emotional the whole time. It hit me in all the right ways. And an hour later, I was still thinking about it. And the next day, I was still thinking about it. And I have grown an appreciation for it after, over the last 2 days. And that almost never happens with this kind of movie. It almost always is like, man, I had so much fun with that. And the more you think of it, you're like, well,
it's just draining.
It's this or that. But this one was really the exact opposite. So anyway, Richard, what about you, buddy?
Well, I mean, it was, it's such a masterful work of I will never call these kind of movies like a masterpiece just because inherently I can't do that because it's about action figures. But in its world, it's like really masterfully done in that it's like it tells a really good micro story, which the micro story took 6 hours to tell, so it's not that impressive on that front. But they got it done while encapsulating this huge macro story of 20 plus films of with everything kind of teasing and leading the way. It's such a the Russos get a lot of credit, but the thing that sets this apart is Feige. I mean, really tying all that together, who should get a ton of credit as well as kind of overseeing this. Because that's what makes these special is they're not forced. There is always a plan. There's a strategy. Everything builds to. It works both at a film level, at a phase level, and at a franchise level. All the way, and all those things kind of work together. And it's really impressive. And this was certainly. It's blocky in parts because it just has to be. It's hardly even fair to criticize it because it's an Avengers movie. So there's going to be, now let's go. Meanwhile, at the Legion of Doom, that kind of thing of pun intended, but with the DC thing. But like you have to kind of go check in on stuff just intrinsically, and that can get a little annoying to watch, especially over 3 hours. But that's. What else are you going to do? I don't even mean that. But the last hour of this really works when everything kind of comes together and really kind of steps on the gas. I was, Shane and I went to saw this late. And so we caught a 10:15 screening, right, Shane? And so we were, it's 1 a.m., it's 2 a.m., and so I'm just kind of intrinsically checking my watch, not because I'm bored or anything, just because I'm like, I want to, I was also like an hour away from home seeing it with Shane. So it's like, okay, I got to navigate this. So it's just like, anxiety of like just wanting to know what time it was. And I was really blown away. Like the first like 40 minutes felt when I would check my watch, it was like, okay, we're probably about an hour and a half in. It's like, oh, okay, only 35 minutes in. Okay. This is kind of slowly chugging along, but then like the last hour felt like 5 minutes. I mean, it really steps on the gas in really a beautiful way, and the characters are used in kind of it feels like a highlight reel in the best possible way. They're really highlighted in that way. You really get the best of all of them. The ones that are in now, there's a lot of characters not in this because they mostly were in Infinity War a lot and schedules and things, and then also they're dust for most of the movies, so that doesn't make sense. But the ones that work, there's a lot of Nebula. There's a lot of Nebula, but which is fine. She's great, and that character totally makes sense, and it's how you have to tell the story. But it's like when you have the option of all of these charismatic actors and actresses, and then you have to stop down for 8 minutes on a character who's purposely not charismatic. It's not Karen, whatever, however saying it. It's not her fault, but the character itself is a robot, basically. So it's like, I'm going to take time away from Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Hemsworth to deal with this emotive. Now, oh, great, now we have 2 of these robots. You're like, oh, my God, please kill me.
Can we get 2 Hemsworths, please?
Exactly. So, but again, it made, those things are forgivable when they move the plot. And, of course, that did. It was just, from a viewing thing, you're like, ugh. But yeah, I think, and we'll go ahead and go into spoilers here. I mean, shortly after Shane's initial thoughts. But the things they had to do, they did with a lot of grace, and those things that you tie up. The things that were nagging at you over the last 19 films, you tie up well, and so that was done, I thought, with a lot of class and grace, and again, strategy and sound story and all. I mean, these are just, Shane and I were talking about on the drive home when I dropped Shane off at his parents' house because he's in from out of town, and we were seeing a Marvel movie.
To be clear, folks, I don't live in my parents' basement.
I was going to say, well, we were seeing a Marvel movie on opening night, so you weren't alone there. But
it's more of a lair, but
yeah, they live with him. No.
I mean, I call it the Bat Cave. My mom refuses to address it as that way, but
No, Shane was in from out of town and was nice enough to invite me along, and so dropped him off at his house. We were talking. It's like it's so funny. These movies are just master classes in execution. Like, they don't break any molds. It's just like they're the New England Patriots. It's like, you know what? We're just gonna get 7 yards every play, and just kind of everything we do, we're gonna do excellently, and just churn up the field. And we're not gonna run 18 different reverses and like a crazy fun offense, but we're just gonna execute the stuff we do really well. And it's just what they do really well is story, not unlike Pixar or something. I mean, they really drive that through, and so that was really well done. And they allow charisma in their actors in a lot of ways. They let movie stars be movie stars, which is cool because how often do you get to do that? But I've gone on way too long for me. So Shane, what were your initial thoughts?
So even casual fans of the show will know that I am not a giant sports guy. So the story I'm about to tell, I might be factually inaccurate or just flat out wrong, but bear with me for a moment. The story that I've often told, or the analogy I like to use for these Marvel movies, is that apparently at one point in Babe Ruth's career, he went up to bat and he pointed to the back of the stadium as if to say, this is exactly where I'm about to hit the ball.
No, he was pointing because they let an African-American into the stadium, and he was angry. He was calling an usher.
So, but in the story, right, he pointed to the back of the field or whatever, and he said, this is exactly where I'm going to hit it. And then he crushed it, and that's exactly where it went. And that's the story that I feel like is a part of what these Marvel movies are, is that, starting in 2008, with Iron Man, and then also more specifically in this story in 2012 with including Thanos at the very end teaser, whatever, the Avengers. This is the satisfaction of watching that baseball fly into the back of the stands exactly where Babe Ruth said it would go, right? So many of these forgivable things, because I agree with Richard that there was maybe a little bit too much Nebula in this movie or this and that. So many of these little nitpicks that we might have are so forgivable for the fact that the ball landed exactly where they said it would, and it's such a pleasure to watch the story unfold and to let it kind of go where it goes. That it's a treat. It's a real treat to watch these movies, because whether you like it or not, you're invested in these characters now over the course of a decade, and you can't help but get attached to their storylines and their arcs. And so it's just this movie is a big, weird spinning machine that has a lot of different things going on, but I do feel like ultimately it sticks the landing, and I feel like it's a wonderful culmination of the ball landing exactly where Babe Ruth, and I suppose Babe Ruth in this sense is Kevin Feige, but it's exactly where he said it would land, and it's fantastic to watch it,
Yeah, and you know what? I really like how they, I hate to quote anybody, but he's just stacking good days on top of good days, right? Good movies on top of good movies, and eventually that'll build to something great. If you take it one movie at a time and say, you know what, let's just make this the best we can make it, then we'll see where this takes us. And luckily, this is where it all headed. You know what? I think probably the Endgame, no pun intended, for Marvel, when they started with 2008, Iron Man was like, one day we could do an Avengers. Like, that would be the big end all, Like, I don't think they even thought they would make 4 Avengers movies and they would all be more successful and better than the ones before them. And then they would, at the end of the entire arc, they would acquire the rights to the other half of the Marvel Cinematic Universe or whatever, or comic universe, and be able to plant the seeds for the next 20 years. I think this is even more successful than, to Shane's point, they had anticipated it being at the outset. And like I said, that's just credit to them. That's credit to Kevin Feige not going the DC route and setting a release date for Avengers in 2012 before Iron Man had even come out, basically. And that's great. And you know what? Hard work pays off. Patience pays off. And this is, like I said, almost 12 years, 11 years since this was all started. And even, 4 years before that in pre-production when they started laying the groundwork for this. But let's talk about the film. I mentioned it starts, let's get into spoilers now. So spoilers from here on out. We're 40 minutes in. We've given you non-spoilers for 40 minutes. If you want to go see this, come back to us. Spoilers from here on out. Okay. The movie starts out on a very somber note. I loved how it started with Clint Barton, on his farm teaching his daughter archery, and then goes inside, and then the vanishing happens. I love that. I thought that was a real human element to this, and it felt like apocalyptic and like had a horror element to it too. To start off the movie, I really like that. It put it in an emotional perspective. It gets him involved in the story. The phrase I had in my head going into this whole movie was just inevitable fate. And I think that's the phrase that they've been pushing home. That's the thesis of this, right? Thanos ended up, I wrote that in my notes, and then later in the film, Thanos has the actual line, "I am inevitable," which is probably going to become...
Twice.
Yeah, it's probably going to become a meme at some point, and I love that this movie... It ties up all these character stories, but the moral of the story is that things happen, they're gonna happen, and you can't control it. But unless you're a superhero, right? You've got quantum physics involved in Infinity Stones. But I love the concentration on the inevitable fate aspect of life and relationships and love and all that. And I thought this had a bigger moral message than any of the MCU movies previously, especially towards the end. And they set the seeds to that very early. We get Captain Marvel very early on in the movie. And she comes into the picture and says, "I'm going to go kill Thanos," in a very humorous way. We bring Captain America into the movie very early on. The first glimpse we see of him, he drops a razor into the sink, signaling the end of Catbeard and the transformation of his character.
Worst part of the movie. Part of the movie.
Scruffy
Cap was awesome.
I know, but I love the subtlety of
Yeah, it was
his
cool.
intro is just like you just see a razor in the sink, and then he's standing there looking in the mirror. There's not like this cliche scene of like emotional music, and he's like, it's like crying into the mirror kind of thing. And then they're all talking about what's happened with Thanos, what they can do. This part I felt really kind of jarring. It was my first kind of what? They're all talking in a group. Every character that they've established, they've introed, and then Bruce Banner's just like, but if we do this, we're not going to be able to. And I'm just like, where did he come from? He's just in the room all of a sudden talking. And Cap comes in and delivers the line, and pardon my language, let's go get this son of a bitch. Mm. And then the opening credits title card hits. And when I was talking about risks earlier, that to me, I kind of was like, wow. When they said they started off this freaking movie, it's essentially a kid's movie with let's go get this son of a bitch. That told me, okay, we're taking this thing to the next level. If this was Avengers or even Avengers 2, it probably would have been let's go get this son of a would have cut right there and been kind of like, oh, that's kind of funny, but cheeky in a way. But they went for it in this movie, man, the way.
And also, it was just great to see like that moment kind of play out. Where in the second Avengers, there was literally a running gag throughout the film that Captain America doesn't like using foul language.
Right? Yeah.
And so the callback of let's go again. Pardon my French. Let's go get this son of a bitch. It was a fantastic callback to this is a big bad guy that we got to deal with, So that was a wonderful kind of callback to that joke, and also just a real great shorthand for guys. This is a big problem, and we got to deal with this thing. It really lent to the severity of the situation.
Stakes are higher, just point blank. I mean, just across the board, stakes are higher for this one than any of the previous films, and
absolutely,
I think you're both spot on there. That's an indicator. Early. If you didn't already know, hey, this is serious, guys,
Thanos is a problem, guys. We got to
There is I guess probably the most complaints that most people will probably have with this film is the timeline stuff, the Infinity Stones, the MacGuffin-y kind of stuff that you have there with being able to go back, undo things, whatever. We talked about in the Infinity War episode where we thought this would go. We talked about Nebula specifically. We thought this would be a Nebula-heavy film. I thought Nebula was going to go get the Time Stone, reverse it to avenge Gamora's death and do this whole thing, right? And so I expected that. I did not expect that. First of all, the intro to Iron Man. I want to touch on that a little bit, where he's floating in space and gives the last message to Pepper into the helmet, that we've seen from the trailers. That I honestly thought that he was gonna go in the first 5 minutes of this, and I was like, wow, this is quite a way to start this thing. Just Iron Man's gone, and maybe they're avenging Tony Stark's death, and that's what calls them all back together to go defeat Thanos, right? Is that the one who kind of started this thing is now gone? But I liked Captain Marvel. A reason for her to be there, bringing his ship back and everything. But I did not expect similar to Infinity War in the first 5 minutes, how Thanos just shows his power. He kills Loki, right? He kills Hulk or whatever. He's just going to town, and you're just like, wow, this hasn't even begun. So I didn't expect this early for the Infinity Stones to be gone, for all of this stuff to be laid on the table essentially in the first 15 minutes of this thing, and we're in a 3-hour movie. That was pretty shocking. So, I thought I knew where this thing was going to go. But really, the end.
Well, Brian,
what
was the moment that you kind of felt like, they're subverting my expectations here?
Right. This is what I was going to say, Shane, is the whole feeling I got was this film is a perfect example of how to subvert expectations without pissing people off. Pissing the fan base off.
Because again, just for the listeners, we are in spoiler territory here, so please don't listen if you haven't seen the film. The moment that really threw me was in the first 15 minutes. They kill Thanos and they behead him, and I thought, oh my god! Maybe this movie isn't even about Thanos.
Yes,
maybe it's about there's a different villain or whatever. That was the moment, at least for me, Kent, that I was like, oh man, maybe this is not even close to what I was thinking about.
Right?
What are they going to do here? So that was the moment that really kind of threw me for a loop. But I was like, whoa.
Same for me. In hindsight, that's not that huge of a surprise, right? When you've seen the whole thing and kind of have it's unfolded. But in the moment, I was like, holy cow, that's huge. And then they back that up immediately with 5 years later. And at that point, you're just like, oh, whoa, that's totally... Because I leaned over to Coop. I mean, my kid's 6, so it's not like he's a smart kid. He follows this. He catches on to what's going. But, you never know in a movie. So I kind of leaned over to him. I was like, hey, just... Thanos might not be dead, dude. That might be a trick. Something may be up because you've seen so many of these movies at this point that you just have my immediate instinct anyway is it's a fake Thanos or there are options on the table for what just happened here, and then they pretty quickly go to 5 years later and you're like, okay, all right, this really is a real change or real shift from the expectation of what I think we all I didn't expect that going in. I don't think about those things beforehand. I've said before, same with when we do our Star Wars trailer breakdowns, I'm always pretty upfront about I purposefully try not to overthink what the movie is going to be like going in, because I don't want my expectation to change or to tint what the actual movie is. So it's the same with these, but that wasn't in the cards for me. I thought the movie was going to kind of start much like it did, pretty much right after Infinity War, and that we were going to stay in that range. I would assume, I probably would have assumed if you would have asked me going in, hey, what do you think the timeline is from the end of Infinity War to the end of Endgame, and I'd have been a month, maybe 2 months. It's right afterwards. It's gonna just stay right in that range, and that was supremely wrong.
Yeah, it was really cool to see the aftermath of the vanishing. I love the shot is again in the trailer of all the boats stacked up around the Statue of Liberty. It's amazing. And we talked about our expectations going into this, and if with the vanishing from Infinity War and how that ends, and how half the MCU is wiped out with the vanishing, and it's okay, well, you can't wipe them out for every reason that we've laid out. The movies to come, this movie, etc. So how are they going to undo this? Well, the Time Stone is involved, so they're going to undo it. But I thought, well, the Infinity Stones have to be involved somehow in order to undo this. And so, right at the beginning when Thanos is like, I destroyed them, they're gone, you can't undo it. I was like, well, I guess they can't undo with the Time Stone. Everything, every possibility, well, they could take the Reality Stone, all those things were off the table. And so that subverted my expectations, but didn't anger me on what I expected. It definitely made me question how they were going to get themselves out of this situation. And, a lot of complaints about the MCU is, certain characters are just there to make money, or they're not really necessary to the plot. And I've been a vocal person on the show saying this, is that Ant-Man is a kind of we can bring this in because we like Paul Rudd and this is fun, and we can add, it can be big and small and talk to ants and all this stuff. And Marvel is telling us the whole time, it's trust us, this guy's going to have a place in the MCU. He's going to matter, to the big scale of what's going on. And I never saw it until the
really?
Quantum.
I knew once they did the quantum thing in the... Was it the Wasp or the first one where they hinted that?
Oh, yeah. I knew the quantum realm would come in, but I didn't realize that would be how they got that. Time travel was an element of that. And that was where, he brings in Tony Stark, and he's like, I think that we could do something with time travel with this. And that crossover I did not envision. I thought there would be something that somebody gets stuck at the end in the quantum realm again, or that's another place that we can explore later, but I didn't think that would be the way to defeat Thanos, if that makes sense. So that was cool, and that meant something. It's like, wow, now Ant-Man and all those movies mean something to this entire Captain America arc, which it never really did, other than like, hey Cap, I'm here, I'm at the airport, and we're gonna have a battle, you know. That really made sense to me. Finally, I liked the the only complaint I had about that was like, okay, he's stuck in the freaking quantum realm, and he'll never come out, and then an effing rat steps on the button, and that's how he like comes out. Like that was kind of, like I say, inevitable.
That
fate.
rat is really, of all the heroes,
of
the
Rocket's
Marvel,
cousin. Yeah,
that rat is the most heroic. Like that single act, if you think about it, is more important than really anything that happened in the 20 movies. Pretty crazy.
Second most heroic rodent creature in this movie. Yeah.
Interesting Hollywood show bit. That's the same rat from the last scene of The Departed. So he's doing quite well for himself.
Yeah, he does good
of
stuff.
course.
We'll have to ask our friend Colin. About the if that was one of his rats, because he's a actual rat handler on movies. That's funny. Okay.
Does he know Crispin Glover? That's the real question.
We'll see. He's not handled him before.
I hope not. Yeah.
So another complaint, I guess, something that didn't really work for me was, let's just make the Hulk Mark Ruffalo. I didn't like Professor Hulk is, I guess, the correct term, the comic term of that. It didn't really work for me. I can see why it would. I prefer my Hulk to be hulky and pissed off, but that's I don't like the direct. I guess I don't. If you had told me this is where they were going to go with it at Avengers 2012, I wouldn't have liked the trajectory of Hulk. That was one of the things I was most excited about leaving Avengers 2012 was, where's Hulk going to go? And now it's one of the things I'm most depressed about, is I don't really care at all anymore about that.
Yeah, I think that character's a little washed, but I thought it was a funny bit, and frankly I'd prefer what they did versus I was kind of tired of the back and forth. I don't know, I kind of hate myself, or no, I'm embracing the anger.
I just don't like how they made him look like Mark Ruffalo.
Yeah, it was an odd.
Now it's like they're gonna just do it slowly every movie until eventually he's just Mark Ruffalo, a giant green one. I thought it was funny in the diner. Like I liked how they used him. I just don't care much for that character going forward the way I thought I would.
Agreed.
You know, I thought by this point that they would have spun him off into his own thing, and he would be one of the more popular. I mean, I've seen statistics that they're like, everything Marvel does, like if they put Hulk in it, like the approval rating goes like up 50% or something crazy like that. Like trailers and stuff that they've tested, like people love the Hulk, but it's just such a hard character to nail down perfectly.
I was hoping he was going to do a spotlight monologue. They knew.
Yeah.
As in giant green form, I thought that would have been cool.
Turns out the Hulk was Thanos the entire time. He was working. He was Hail Hydra, and that's a Now You See Me reference. So I mean, he means something to this movie. What he does with the Infinity Gauntlet and everything, and the radiation, the gamma radiation. Again, these are seeds that were planted long time ago with these characters that mean something, and that actually are payoffs that work in these movies. You know, like his actual skill set as a person and what he brings to the table actually can help move the plot forward, and that's what I like. Everybody has a role in this, and it really is a team effort to stop Thanos. It's not just Captain Marvel flies in kind of at the end, with the ship thing, but it's not a Lord of the Rings, oh, here are the Eagles, let's fly away and everybody's good, kind of thing. Like they really can't do this without all the individual parts working like clockwork, is in an Ocean's 11 kind of way. Like they lay out the plan, like, okay, here's what we got to do, and if we don't do it this way, we're screwed. And I really liked that, how they lay it all out there in the first hour of this thing. here's what we're gonna do. We introduce all the characters. We establish the stakes. The second hour of the film I thought was the most enjoyable. Certainly the most fun when they just Back to the Future 2 this entire thing and go back into all the previous Marvel films. I loved that. I thought that was the most fan servicey stuff, but never thought I'd see some of those characters again, some of those settings again. When they suit up to go back in time, and Captain America gives that like whatever it takes speech, I was like, all right, here comes the intermission. Boom, intermission screen. And that's probably where it would have been had they had an intermission, and it would have been perfect. But the next scene, it says 2012 New York. It starts with that. I think the pacing to go straight from there to that was too irresistible to pass up for Marvel to keep the pacing, to keep the movie going, and not have that jarring transition. So I was all for an intermission going into this, but I can see why they wouldn't do that, because between Act 1 and Act 2, it's really smooth, and the energy, they keep it up, because that's really in hour 2 is where you can start checking the watch. But
sure.
But man, I really, really enjoyed that. How did you guys feel about that? I thought some of the logistics involved in, multiple Captain Americas in a scene, like him wrestling himself and stuff. Like, I don't know how it's a lot of face replacement technology and things like that at work there. But that was great. I loved that. Like I said, fan servicey, but it worked for me. What'd you guys think?
Yeah, I'm same. I thought they were. There's certainly some MacGuffin-y aspects to it, but they did a very good job up front of stating how this is my big thing with any of this kind of movie or plot point in a movie is just establish your rules and stick to your rules. We all know that none of this is real because it's a movie about a guy who's a big green dude and a raccoon that can talk and stuff like that. So like we all understand and we accept that not all of it's real and that we have movie dust sprinkled into it, but just give us your rules and then follow the rules. And I thought they did an excellent job of that. And it started with the whole, Ant-Man explaining it, Tony Stark figuring it out, and then having, I think it's Hulk mostly that delivers the whole it doesn't work like it works in movies. It's and kind of gives you a point by point. Here's how time travel works in our universe, and we're just going to stick to that. And hey, I love that. I think that's a genius way to do things, and I always appreciate when you can kind of simplify it in the terms of here are the rules, and we're just going to go with those. And then all the flashbacks were fun. It was a little logic leap for me. The only point really that I found myself like making myself stay involved, or check my brain kind of trying to check out was the second time travel where they're like, okay, well now, and we lost the Tesseract, so now we're going to jump to 1970 and hope that this works out. And that whole scene was really great, and it was a blast.
I was going to say, how dare you, Roger Sterling.
I know, no, look, I'll never would never say anything negative about Mr. Sterling. That's a great sequence, and seeing those two together and getting Steve and Peggy and stuff, those are all great moments. But that was the only time where I was like, okay, if you're gonna just do this, then why don't you just jump to 2016 and go to Michael Douglas and be like, hey dude, we need a lot of serum so we can make this happen, and there's ways in which I'm sure somebody will, but then they do. But the point is, if you're writing,
Michael Douglas has got serum, bro.
Right. But if you're in for the ride, if you're along for the ride and you find yourself trying to your brain is trying to turn on and check out on that sort of stuff, then it could probably be, I don't know, but it served a purpose once they got there. It just, in the moment I was like, okay, if we're going to do this, then that kind of messes with the logic of this whole thing. But I don't know. I think they saved it pretty well and moved us right along to the next part. I don't know. Yeah. Arby, what'd you think on the jump backs and working their way through the Avengers universe, I guess?
Yeah, I'll talk about this briefly because I've got to lay out. I need like 15, 20 minutes to talk about Fat Thor. So if we can just move through this quickly.
Fat shaming Thor?
Yes, Kent. Yeah. Yeah, no, the time traveling worked fine for me. It's, again, these are things where I have, I think, I'm more detached from these things than a lot of people. And sometimes that's good when you're watching them. Sometimes they're bad. That's bad, but it's good when it would be impossible for me to be offended by. The only thing that bothered me time travel wise when we get to later spoilers, questionable when Peter Parker goes back to high school, like that other fat guy, was he disappeared? Why are they the same age? Why is he the same age, still in the high school? And like, is it cool if he still dates Zendaya? Because he is 5 years older now. I mean, it might be a statutory type situation. Age-wise.
I think the people that. All right, are you? Do you want it? Hello? Do you want it? Oh, okay. I don't know if you were asking or if you were.
No, I'm just saying, like, he's technically like 24 now, so it's creepy that he's back in high school.
Oh, I get what you're saying. I thought the people that got snapped, like, it was only like a couple days or something.
No, for sure. But when he comes back, that fat friend of his is also the same age, so we assume he got disappeared. But how do you handle that in high school, dating-wise? Kind of weird. Maybe the other people are older now.
Yeah, that's true.
Right.
We're going to have to figure that out
thought.
in Homecoming.
You know what's interesting, though, is that we all kind of have different opinions about the time travel stuff going back to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Because, again, the only scenes that really kind of dragged for me when we're going back through the Marvel Cinematic Universe was the stuff with Hawkeye and Natasha back on Vormir, and then also the stuff with Don Cheadle and Nebula when they were on Morag trying to get one of the stones.
Uh-huh.
Those were the scenes that I was like, ugh, we've kind of done this already. Let's just get through it. Especially the stuff with Natasha and Clint. It was like, that was such a big kind of emotional moment in Infinity War. The whole back and forth of it's going to be you, it's going to be me, it's going to be you, it's going to be me with Natasha and Clint. That felt
too much.
That was the one scene that I was like, oh my God, let's get this over. This is going to be one of you. Just do it. That was the one scene that I kept thinking, ooh, let's get this over with as fast.
That was the exact scenario that I expected with Nebula in this movie. Was for her to find a way to go back to undo that. I love that callback and that dilemma.
I thought it was
not expect it with those two characters.
But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about just more with Don Cheadle. Well, just Don Cheadle and her, where there was like 3 or 4 scenes of them trying to get the Power Stone, I think it was the Power Stone. It was like, let's just we all saw Peter Quill get this. Let's speed this thing along and just move.
Can we get War Machine out of these? Like, honestly, I can't do it.
He doesn't serve a purpose.
He does not serve a purpose in the movies other than like
he's the star of the biggest comedy on television. So.
Yeah, comedic genius.
I love Don Cheadle. I love
Don Cheadle too. But.
It's not a great character.
We're team Terrence Howard. You're a big Terrence Howard.
Make no mistake. I like everybody involved in those scenes. It was just that those were the scenes that I was like, ugh, let's go.
I'm with you. I had a friend today text me and say, I'm going to see it tonight. When do I take a bathroom break? Like, I can't make it all the way through. When I was like, just take an empty cup, bro. But fill your own jar. But
how dare you?
A piss jar.
We bring them around our necks when we go see DC.
Yeah,
movies.
absolutely. But that's what I told him. I was like, when I didn't want to give him any spoilers, but I was like, look, there's a portion in which Nebula and War Machine are pretty much the only characters on screen. You can probably go during that. You're not really going to be missing anything. And I'm with you, Shane. Like, I thought the whole sequence of Hawkeye and Black Widow of who's going to go, that was a cool sequence. It was like too many, no, it's going to be me's. I was like, we could have, I'm going, and then, she jumps. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need 7 of those. And I was with you there. It was a little draggy.
In movies, it's the rule of 3, and we did about 6 before it was finally her and she died. So it was like, let's cut this down to 3. That's how it works, and let's kind of move on. That was the one scene that, again, now having seen it twice, that I was like, ugh, let's go. Let's move this thing faster a little bit.
In my world, it's when the preacher has a 6-point sermon instead of a 3-point sermon. Just like, bro, let's
Can't
go.
do it. Yeah.
We got to get to Golden Corral.
Gotta get to that noon buffet.
Gotta get to Golden Corral.
Exactly. Gotta get to
That
first.
chocolate fountain ain't gonna drink itself.
Luann platter, you know?
Right.
All right.
R.I.P.
Some other
Ryans.
things. Just some other things from a little bit earlier. I know we're further along in the movie now, but some things earlier that I didn't mention. I loved that Steve Rogers, like 5 years later, is like a VA therapist guy, or like it's cool. An emotional support therapist. I think that was a really cool note. I loved,
and also just for the fans that are not super into filmmaking or whatever, the guy that he's coaching that has the whole story about I went on a date and I cried during the silence. That's one of the Russo brothers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That was in the movie. So just if you don't know that, that's one of the directors of the film.
The sequence after Ant-Man gets ratted out of the quantum realm, and he runs around that memorial, like the Vietnam memorial, and looking for his name. I thought that was really a good moment. And then he runs back to his daughter and sees his daughter and all that. I thought that worked. That was great.
Little dusty.
And then they set up the stakes for what they're going to do. I love that they actually call it time heist, because that was probably like in the development process, screenplay process. It's like, okay, what do we do about this time heist scene? It's like, well, let's just be really upfront about it. They talk about multiple movies references, Quantum Leap and Back to the Future, and they mention all these different scenarios. They're like, wait, that's not how it works in these movies. And it's like, it doesn't matter. And they lay that out there and say,
it's perfect.
Okay, you might know in other movies that's how it works, but here it's different, and you've just got to accept it. I love that meta piece of establishing the logic.
Yep. Establish your rules and follow them. That's that. I mean, that's all you got to do in that situation.
Exactly. Like I said, I liked the Scott Lang jumping from kid to current self to old man when he's going back and forth through the quantum realm when they're testing it out. That establishes that you can be a different age, and that comes to fruition later, of course. But let's talk about Fat Thor a little bit.
For the rest of the episode.
Yeah, the movie should have just been called Fat Thor.
Lebowski Thor. My favorite Thor. Gonna be honest with you.
Same.
Makes it more human. More attainable, if you will.
I think
still would.
Probably midway through shooting Thor, their first one, they're like, okay, this guy's a comedian. He's not an action star. And so he's essentially the comic relief through everything except Thor the Dark World, which... if we have to return to any of the movies, why did we have to return to the dark? I don't know.
But what an MVP Chris Hemsworth is, in the sense that he can literally effortlessly kind of balance between these like really heady emotional moments that land, and then this kind of broad comedy that's zany and funny, and he can kind of walk that line effortlessly. I would put him as the MVP of the movie over everybody else, because he's just that good.
Yeah, this is a Richard thing. Brian and Richard maybe, but mostly Richard established this. It's that when you focus in on for me, like the first Thor, but really even in Star Trek when he shows up as Kirk's dad for like 3 minutes, I was just like, that guy's a movie star, and that's what a movie star can do, is that kind of stuff. He's also a very talented actor, but
eats the screen.
Yeah,
the screen.
We'll see. Men in Black. If Men in Black flops, we'll know he's not a movie star.
No, he's.
I think he still is.
Thor Ragnarok. Even if and
we know he's good. We know he's a movie star as Thor. I just want to see him in literally anything else. Be a movie star.
You haven't seen Rush.
I've seen Answer the Call, and he was.
No, I know. But that's a movie star role.
He was in
Rush.
He was pretty good in Rush. Yeah,
he was.
Hands raised. Who saw Michael Mann's Black Hat?
Yeah, he's been in a lot of bad movies, and that's partially on him and Agent and Bad Luck and stuff.
Red Dawn.
And he did
The Heart of the Sea.
In The Heart of the Sea, which is one of those bad movies you forgive, because it's like everyone takes that movie. That was a huge book, and it's Ron Howard, and like you do that, and then it wasn't good. That's not on him, but that dude. Anytime the thing when you talk about like a classic, and I don't mean like this guy is I just mean he has the skill set. It may not ever happen for him in terms of the right property or whatever.
Right.
I mean, it has with Thor, but I mean, a second property or whatever. But that dude sits next to Robert Downey Jr., arguably the most charismatic actor of his era, and just is toe-to-toe with him. Just doesn't even, you know what I mean? And when he goes with Chris Evans, who's a perfectly great leading man, you know, really good as Captain America, good actor, a really handsome, whatever, interesting person in his own right, Hemsworth just eats him. It's just, he literally eats the screen when he's on it. And a lot of that is his humor. I mean, he just is very... Those jokes, like I was talking with Shane about this too a little bit after the movie. He has some great jokes in it, but a lot of them are just like 6 out of 10s, and they're 10 out of 10s because of his delivery.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just part of it's the accent and all that, but like he just a lot of those jokes aren't even like killers, but they kill in the theater just because of, and that's where his skills are unreal.
The scene at the very end of the film where he's talking to Peter Quill as they get back on his ship. That scene on paper isn't funny. The dialogue isn't funny. But that scene is hysterically funny.
It almost feels like it was an improv. He
plays it.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. For sure.
Yeah.
But Richard, you want to talk about second property. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. He is starring in, or he's apparently coming back in Jay and Silent Bob Reboot. So who knows?
Now I'm out.
This could be a second win for him.
Selling my stuff.
I thought it was a funny note. It reminded me of Trevor, you know, in a way.
Yeah.
But
I'm still Team Trevor.
I thought they took the bro thing like 8% too far. Like the fourth time he was like, "Where's the beer?" I was like, "Okay, we get it. This is an Aquaman, you know. Like we don't have to be an alcoholic raging." But yeah, I liked it. But like I think they probably took it 8% further than they could have or should have, and it would have been just perfect for me. But like I said,
the Rock guy playing Fortnite was incredible, though. Like new Master 69 or whatever. What's that he played against? So funny.
Oh yeah,
that's your screen name, Richard, right? Is New Master 69? That's you.
But
that was it.
69.
Is there anything that's gonna maybe make this feel dated other than that? You know, other than Fortnite.
Sure.
Be like, well,
Sure.
Fortnite was really big in 2019, guys. It was a thing. You know. They're playing.
Yeah,
Minecraft,
I'll tell you what,
like,
Kent. The only other joke that felt super dated, like immediately, was when Hulk dabbed.
Yeah,
that was the only joke.
Did he
that was
really?
like,
I didn't catch that. I forgot about that.
Yeah, when the kids took the selfie and then as they were leaving, he dabbed, and I was like, oh my god, that's not going to hold up a month from now.
That's a cringe.
Yeah.
Dabbing was really big 2 years ago when they were filming this. So
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but the CGI takes forever.
All the memes that they try to cram into these movies are. Wasn't there a "what are those" joke in like
that was great
Black
though.
Panther?
That was a great joke. Yeah.
That was.
I'm a big
that was a. I can't. No more memes in movies, guys.
I'm all for it.
Yeah, same.
It's for the culture, Kent.
Yeah.
It's for the culture.
Which it is in itself a meme. Yeah, I'm fine with that. They did take place during these times, so they are, you know, they can make a Lebowski joke or, you know, whatever. I mean, a lot of stuff's going to be dated on
Isn't
these.
it 2023 though in this?
Yeah, but Fortnite isn't going anywhere for several years. I mean, it's like the only thing competing with Netflix in terms of eyes. So, you know, I don't think it's going to be like a 2-month fad. I think that is a platform through which things will be launched, which is something I don't completely understand because I'm a V old. But, you know, these movies never forget they're made for 14-year-olds, and we get to enjoy them because they're good. But they are not made for us whatsoever. So let them go with what they want.
Yep. Agree.
The Hawkeye thing, Samurai Hawkeye, Ronin, could have worked a lot better, but they.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be Deadpool. I was kind of excited for a second. I was like, oh, man.
No, that would have been great.
What a surprise. Yeah.
A lot of pointer sequences, a lot of file scenes in this. Chock full. You have to have that in this, though.
Overshirts? Were there overshirts? I didn't know.
No, there was not. No, I literally looked in Mad Tally.
No
Zero
overshirts.
overshirts. I was like, oh, they're going to overshirt like Hulk. Like, he's going to be a giant guy in an overshirt.
He literally made a point to rip his shirt off in the movie.
Yeah. He, hairy-chested Hulk, too. I'm not... What are they doing, guys? They're going...
The stuff that breaks your brain cracks me up.
Dude, I just don't see, like, the things of, like, oh, we gotta make him look more like Mark Ruffalo. I mean...
That's in Mark Ruffalo's
cares?
contract. That's what that is. That's part of it.
The ladies love the Ruffalo. The moms of
the smashed face, like
they do. But he
weirdly,
pulls that guy.
He's in the eye, man. Come on.
A couple of things about Thanos I want to discuss. So Thanos has the Infinity Gauntlet, or most of the stones in the Infinity Gauntlet in Infinity War, and still can barely survives an attack of Spider-Man and like a couple other guys. Remember when they're trying to rip off the Infinity Gauntlet? In this, he doesn't even have the Infinity Gauntlet. He's been on this planet for however long it's been. He gets ambushed by the three most powerful Avengers, four when you count Captain Marvel, and he still can survive without the Infinity Stones. He's still just a big, strong guy. To me, that's what I thought made Thanos powerful. But, to rebut that, Tony Stark is like basically in a wheelchair. Thor is Fat Thor, and Captain America is been retired essentially. So it evens out from that perspective. It just felt kind of weird for it to be an even fight between Thanos, who has one arm, and the three biggest Avengers.
Well, he's not Fat Thor yet. He's still Skinny Thor then, because it's before
really?
the 5 years. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's before the 5 years. Because what killing Thanos is what puts him in his depression and then makes him become Fat Thor.
I think he means at the end of Endgame, like in that battle scene.
Oh, I thought he meant
the end of Endgame.
I thought you meant in the beginning of Endgame. I thought you meant the beginning of Endgame when they kill Thanos.
No. When Thor chops his head off and everything.
No. Okay,
because that's another funny. Like, I went for the head this time. Because that was a callback to
good line.
Infinity War. But at that moment when those three go to face off against Thanos, I was like, okay, here's where they're gonna die. All these three guys are gonna die. They set it up to where the three, legacy characters or cornerstone tentpole characters have gone all at the same time to face off against Thanos. I was like, this is the end for them, and we'll see. That's not really what happened, though. Again, subverting expectations.
It's not what happened.
That's not how it happened. That's how it came out. So I like that. Callback to Gladiator, maybe. Retiring to a farm and his hand going through the crops and all that with Thanos. Perhaps. Also, let's talk a little bit, or a lot, about the final hour of this thing. And did it feel too Marvel third acty to you guys, or did it surprise you how cohesive it was?
Yeah,
both. Yeah, same. Go, Arby. You go.
No. I mean, I was just saying it was great. I really enjoyed it. I thought, music swells hit the revealing of all the Avengers, getting to see them in sort of this, almost like Renaissance painting of everything across, as Shane put it. But always when Gwyneth shows up in an Iron Man suit, my pet peeve always is just like, why are there so many Iron Man suits always? The end of these movies tend to just be, let's throw a ton of things that look like Iron Man suits because we have, I don't know if it's like a template they have in their CGI and it's just easy to fill the screen with it.
Sure.
But yeah, it got a little Iron Man suity, but and that was a goop suit, which was cool. It was totally biodegradable, her suit, which was cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she looked refreshed, right? She was on the cutting edge of science technology with all that. With the goop suit.
I told Brian this. I didn't tell you this, Shane, but I was a little punchy towards the end of our screening. And, it's like literally it was 2 a.m. in the last few minutes. And when we'll get to the big thing, but where Gwyneth is distressed and saying goodbye to a certain someone who's injured, it was like I wanted so badly to be like, there's a goop enema that'll cure you. It helps with Infinity Stone.
That's funny.
Yeah. But no, I'm with you, Arby. I thought it was a little bit of both. It was a little too mass CGI and just like kind of a bit much on the eyeballs, but it was one of the things that these movies, we've touched on it over the course of talking about all these movies, and Shane, you hit it at the beginning of this episode. Just one of the things these movies get right is the the emotions and the development of the characters, not just the superhero personas, right? And so you get down to the end there, that battle sequence with the 3 kind of prime Avengers having just been pulverized into the ground with missiles and stuff against Thanos is a really cool, great scene. It gives all of them their opportunity to show what they're capable of, but also I think can't kind of what you're saying, like they're all at the end of this, like they are all just beat to heck, and so that I think plays into why. And also Thanos is also supposedly a great warrior and stuff, but having all those people come on screen and starting with On Your Left, which was just such a cool. That's a great callback to Winter Soldier and really packs a lot of an emotional punch to it. And then, the Doctor Strange wormholes or whatever opening and all these people pouring out. And Black Panther, my kid just like literally is pumping both of his fists and just going crazy when Black Panther comes on, and then Spider-Man and all these. It's just it's really cool. And so it kind of trumps that feeling of, there is a lot going on this screen right now, because, for me at least, because I'm so wrapped up in the emotions of having these characters back, and the emotions of these characters having these characters back. Like that's a big part of why I think that sort of stuff works, is that Cap is emotionally. It's like he's reinvigorated by the fact that his buddy is showing up to fight with him, and for every character that's left there at the end, all of them have somebody coming back to fight with them, and it kind of trumps all that. What might be a very Iron Man 3 sort of ending of like, gosh, there's a lot going on here with the suits and the CGI and the visuals and stuff, and instead you just have, I don't know. For me, it was just kind of.
Yeah,
sheer joy
had to happen.
Yeah, absolutely, and it was inevitable. Yeah, exactly, Richard. It was inevitable,
and I think that is a testament to the success of this franchise, which is that you knew that was going to happen, and yet the moment it does, you swell with such pride and joy and excitement that you're like, this is awesome. Even though you knew it was coming, it was still like, this is so cool to see it on screen and to see all these characters together again. It was like. It wasn't the element of surprise that got you. It was just the cool level of, oh man, look at all of these characters together.
Right.
And they're finally fighting Thanos, which is what we wanted, from the first one. And this is so cool to see it, you know. But you knew it was coming, but it didn't matter.
Yeah. And Cap saying Avengers Assemble was cool. It's a tiny bit cheesy, but it also kind of, that got an actual applause out of my audience. Everybody was up for that and excited about that whole sequence, and it just kind of set that whole battle scene on the right axis, I guess, of just like, all right, here we go. This is what you've been waiting for. Here it is.
The only scene in my screening that got an applause was the return of T'Challa and everybody, the Black Panther crew coming back. That was the most excitement in my screening, but there was a lot of sadness, and we got to talk about that at some point. But the final sequence was, reminded me of something like Ready Player One from last year, where it's like we got to cram all these characters into here and all these references, and it's purely fan servicey and just a payoff to what we built up to this point. But I love that. I loved all the different realms of the MCU coming together, and like I said, all their skill sets mattering. The fact that Doctor Strange, we haven't seen him, but he's the one who can bring all these people here, because of his skills. And then they had that epic shot of all the female heroes together, in one hero shot. And
Shane booed that in our screening, which I thought was in poor taste, dude.
He walked
harsh,
out.
man.
Yeah,
Too
that
harsh.
was like 2 big thumbs down and a loud boo.
Boo. I will say the one thing, I feel like the moment, having seen it twice now, my favorite moment of the film, and I feel like the moment that was designed to get the biggest reaction out of anything else in the film, was I loved the moment where Captain America finally wields Thor's hammer.
Dude, that was so awesome. Gosh. That's like
And again, that's what I was talking about, where Richard and I saw the movie together. it was like silence in the movie theater, and I felt like, are you people kidding me? And then when I saw it again today with my wife, there was like the audience erupted, and it was like, that's what I wanted from that moment. That was my favorite moment of the movie.
Same here. Yeah.
And then, of course, Thor, he literally says, I knew it. And it was like, yes, that's what I wanted from that moment.
Yeah, that was awesome. I mean, that's one of those, you only get, if you're lucky, you get one of those a movie in this kind of movie, you know what I mean? And that one feels like it's been building for 5, I don't know, I can't remember when Ultron came out, 14, I don't know. It just feels like that one's been building for a while. And to have Cap have... because you remember, like, when Avengers came out in 2012, it did kind of feel like, man, Iron Man, Hulk, and Thor are really wrecking shop, and these other three are just kind of like, hey guys, let's shoot some arrows, and I'll tell you where to go, and all this. They felt out of place. And Cap has built since then as a character. He's built as a leader. He's built as a person that we're excited about having on screen, I think. And then to have him get that moment where it's just like, okay, now it's my time to just go ham on somebody. That was awesome. That was an awesome moment.
That was good. That was really good. I love the here's a question. I don't know if Shane, you know this. In regards to the Infinity Gauntlet itself, so you can just build another gauntlet out of Iron Man stuff, and like, why didn't they just get the Infinity Stones earlier and just make a gauntlet? And I don't know, that I thought there was one Infinity Gauntlet and that was it. And when they go and chop it off, that was the end of that. I didn't know that you could forge another Infinity Gauntlet and make your own. So that was a little weird for me, but I liked where they do it and then Rocket Raccoon's like, boo! And he just, like, out of nowhere. I liked Rocket in this. Semi-complete.
That was a small little bit that I felt was missing from this movie, is that Rocket has in 2 or 3 other films made jokes about getting people's limbs or body parts. I felt like when Thanos' arm got, like, cut off, it would have been a nice little joke about, like, I'm gonna get that arm. Yeah. Yeah. Anybody got that gauntlet? I'm gonna get that arm. If that was just a little missed moment.
Yeah. Something actually that happened earlier too is you mentioned John Slattery. I really liked that. That was a slow scene, but I talked about full circle. I thought that was a great moment with Tony Stark and his father and all that, and just the way that they accomplished it. Like, because poses as an MIT scientist, and like the way he has the MIT credentials is because he gave a speech at MIT in Iron Man 3, like things like that I'm just blown away by, that they work, that pay off is amazing. And the fact that Tony Stark is kind of becomes his father to a certain extent, and gets that approval, and something he always in the back of his mind wondered about, and for that to end,
and they leave it to where it's almost as if the dad knew in a weird way. Like, there's enough glances where they kind of leave that open, where it's like he knows
that he came back or whatever. Yeah. It was very well done. I love that.
Great acting too from RDJ too. That sequence. Yeah. I mean, I know he's a great actor. We all know he's a great actor, but so much of this universe is just him kind of being Robert Downey Jr. And I don't know. It's fun to see him get these little moments where he gets to be a little more human and stuff. You get to see, gosh, what a rangy, strong, powerful actor he can be.
None more demonstrated by the moment where he hugs his dad and says thank you, and then quickly follows it up with for your service to the country or whatever. That's the range of Robert Downey Jr. from emotional to funny that fast. Boom.
That's so true, man. How did you guys feel about, or in spoilers, triple spoilers again?
Yeah,
if you're still with us. The end of Tony Stark. That was the one character that I knew was not making it out of this thing. Like, I knew there was a 100% chance we could not move on past Endgame with Tony Stark in the picture. What did how did you guys feel about that, the execution of that and everything?
Well, I'll just say, because my thought's probably the shortest, so I'll go first. Great writing with the aforementioned inevitable line, with him saying, "I am Iron Man," and then kind of being silent while he dies. That what set this franchise apart was that first Iron Man movie. We're so used to the trope of superheroes having these secret identities, and at the end of the first Iron Man movie, when he says, "Screw it, I'm Iron Man. I am Iron Man." And then, which was such a literally stand up in your seat, like, oh wow, this is going to be different, and really set the tone, and I mean that literally, the tone of this sort of self-aware, smart, story-driven, but also lighthearted and dark and appropriate times universe. That little line really set that tone. Great writing by the original. Was it Favreau that wrote that script, or he just directed it? But whoever wrote that, great. But anyway, having that be his kind of also his final words of accepting it and saying, and also cocky and encapsulating that character so perfectly in those few words of "I am inevitable" and "I am Iron Man." And that is just like perfect. Great writing on that front. Told the story in a few words perfectly. So I'll let you guys
totally
talk.
Agree. Incredibly literary, right? Like that felt like an epic novel or something. That's just a perfect closer for his character. But yeah, like I thought coming in, I was prepared for we're going to get a lot of deaths and kind of close out some of these characters, and as we sort of pass the torch to Black Panther and Spider-Man and Captain Marvel and all that sort of stuff. So I was prepared for a few more deaths. As we got down the stretch, post Black Widow's death, it was like, okay, this is not what it's going to be. This is going to end up being somebody makes a sacrifice for the greater good rather than somebody's, make that sacrifice, I guess. And I'm with you, Kent. It felt inevitable that this was Iron Man's swan song, but as you said, Richard, that's such a perfect, really fitting way for him to go out. Just the whole character arc for Tony Stark / Iron Man over however many films he's been in with this, like 7 or 8 or whatever it is. And he should have died in the first one. So all this life was really bonus life for him, and he made the most out of it, which is really a cool story to tell. Which is sad that he's dead, but in that way, these extra 10 years saved the world.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the interesting thing about his death scene to me was that he's had 3 movies now, and he's had a couple of others. He's been involved in a few other films, and it's interesting that at least for me personally, the interaction that weighed the most was his interaction with Spider-Man. And there was a really nice kind of back and forth with, or his guilt of he watched Peter Parker die in Infinity War, and then ultimately Peter Parker watched him die in Endgame. Yeah. That was a really nice back and forth. But it was kind of interesting that out of all of the relationships, whether it's with Pepper Potts or some of the other Avengers that he's worked with, to me, that was the most emotionally weighty moment, was where Peter Parker and him are interacting at the very end. Yeah. That was the moment, again, for me, that like I started tearing up. That it was like, oh man, I didn't realize that this relationship was so powerful and so potent that that's what I cared about more about everybody else who saw him as he passed. Yeah. Did anybody else feel that way? Or is it just me?
Yeah, 100%. I'm a big sucker for that trope in film of the kind of the father figure sort of thing, of the surrogate father or whatever. And did a very good job of that with Homecoming, and then you get an even deeper appreciation of that with Infinity War, and to have that come to fruition here was, it gutted me. I like to emote, or I follow the emotions of the film pretty well. I'm willing to. That's why I get angry about I always talk about This Is Us. That's like a great example of that's emotional terrorism, because it's all it is doing is trying to make you cry. I'm very willing to go along with the emotions of the film. I'm aware that I'm being manipulated into feeling something for a person that doesn't exist, But I'm very willing to go along with it as long as you do it well and in the midst of a good story and whatnot. And all that to say, I love that relationship, and I thought that has built so naturally and beautifully over the course of the 2 previous films, and then to have it come into play at the when Peter Parker shows up, post Dust or whatever. That's an emotional moment and really cool. And you again is another chance to see Tony Stark in a more human perspective, and then to have it close like that, Shane. Yes, that I mean.
And what's crazy is
crying openly at that point.
They didn't even have access to that character until a few years ago. It's crazy that's talk about thinking on your feet. They did have this grand plan, I think, from the beginning, but then also these kind of, like I said, these layers of different plans where they go, okay, we've got this property now. Okay, we're going to do this with it. Thinking on your feet and working that into this overall narrative you're telling, because even at Avengers 1, they don't think they're going to have Spider-Man. So,
right.
It's that kind of crazy. Maybe even Avengers 2-ish, right around there is when they get the right, or they rent the rights essentially from Fox before even the Fox merger and all that. So, yeah, it's crazy on that front that they were able to shoehorn such a meaningful relationship and execute it so well in just a few years, and have that be really the most important relationship in their most important, at least thus far, as character's life, is something that's added on in the last 3 chapters.
Yeah, absolutely.
I didn't expect to get emotional at all. Like I said, everything was on the table for me in this movie, so I wasn't going to be surprised at anything. But I only started tearing up one time in the movie, and it wrecked me when Happy Henderson takes in Tony's daughter and basically is going to be the father for her. That got me, man. I don't know why, but that
and also
was so perfect.
Not to make you cry again, Ken, but just in case you didn't remember, when she says, "I want cheeseburgers," and he says, "Your dad liked cheeseburgers."
Yeah.
Remember it? Okay, sorry.
I remember that whole thing with him coming back and getting the Burger King, and then the Robert Downey Jr.'s actual life of his Burger King story. I don't know if you've heard that, but that's like a big part of his, when he hit rock bottom, like he was eating cheeseburgers or something, like in his real life, and so that's what I've heard, post just in my research afterwards. That was kind of a callback to that as well.
Yes, absolutely.
In his life. But what some of the semi research that I've done in terms of the comic side of things is that she could be the next Iron Man, and that there's a version of Iron Man. Forgot her character, Morgan is her name.
Yeah.
That there's a female Iron Man at some point. So I don't know if that's where they're going, or they're planting the seed for Happy to be her dad, and for her to kind of grow up and be an Avenger. But that could be where they go. And they kind of have they have a reference to it where she puts on the blue Iron Man mask, at one point, and so maybe that's where they go, as she's the blue Iron Man, or the what is it called, the Iron Patriot, the blue, red, white, and blue Iron Man.
Oh, okay, yeah,
the America one.
That sounds right. Yeah.
In some of the current iterations of the comics, there's a character named Riri Williams who becomes. She calls herself Iron Heart.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah.
Well, and she's a genius, but she's a young black woman, and so there could be a theory that Shuri, right? So Black Panther's younger sister, she could become Iron Heart at this point in the comics.
I saw the same suggested after Captain Marvel too. The other pilot, her co-pilot's daughter that plays could be part of that as well. That just floated. Absolutely. I have no, I don't read the comics. I have no clue. It just, I remember seeing that floated around post Captain Marvel a couple months ago.
Yeah, I'd seen that too, and I guess they can go a lot of different directions. Let's talk a little bit about the arc of Steve Rogers, Captain America. We talked about even as far back as Winter Soldier and the introduction of the Falcon that. We thought that the Falcon was going to be Captain America at some point, and that was a long-term plan with this. We see now that is indeed the case, with a literal handing of the shield moment between the two. And man, that note hit for me too, perfectly. I thought the ending, the actual last sequence of the film, which is that, hit every note perfectly. You know, him going back and them telling Bruce Banner / Professor Hulk telling him, you know, you got to go back and put the Infinity Stones where they got them, or everything's going to be messed up. Okay, I got this. You know, I'll do it. I'll bring the hammer with me. We got this. He goes back. He doesn't come back in time when he said he was supposed to come back, when they zap him back to current day, but he's actually there, and we see him in the distance sitting on a bench. And at this point, I looked over and thought, oh, he's small Steve again. Like, he's gone back.
I thought so too for a second.
Before the super soldier serum, and said, I don't want any of this. I want to live my Steve Rogers life. And so for him to be revealed as an old person was really cool. And I love that note of him going back and living his life, and the Easter egg callback, whatever you want to call it, to, you know, save me one last dance. I've got a date thing from Captain America is such a great somber moment to end on. In the actual film, I know we got to touch on a little bit on Thor's arc and where they go with that, but I just thought that was the perfect note to end on. I felt like,
and I called it. I showed Shane. I have written proof. I called that before the 2 days before I saw it. I was like, he's going to stay back in time. There's going to be time travel, and he's going to stay and be with Peggy. Not that that's a really hard call, but I'm proud of myself for that.
Well, I think what the explanation I've actually seen for that is how, like, you know, how does that apply within the logic of the time travel that they've established, you know, the logic they've established, is that he travels back in time via the quantum thing. You know, the Pym particles are the big MacGuffin of this, like the fact that he goes and, like, brings Pym particles, you know, because that's what makes him able to time travel. He goes back, lives his life with Peggy Carter until she dies, and then she dies. He uses the other Pym particles to fly back to the reality that he left, you know, and to be in, to tell everybody about it, right? Or to come back without having lived that part of the story. So I guess that's just how, if you're wondering how could he be back, you know, how could he be gone and then be back, that's just an explanation. That's what I've seen out there, floated around, of how that could be possible, given the...
And that's kind of how Steve Rogers has existed in the comics for a period of time. For the last couple of years, he's been an older man, and Sam Wilson has been Captain America. So... you know, I don't want to be that guy that's like, oh, I saw it coming. But the minute he went back into time, I thought, this is probably what they're going to do. Sure. But again, a testament to Marvel. They did it, and I knew it was coming, and it was still such a pleasure to see that interaction and him giving him the shield and everything. It was a wonderful little piece of, of comics or storytelling, and it was like, oh, this is great. And now I'm looking forward to Captain America 4, and it's going to be, you know, Anthony Mackie is playing Captain America, and it's going to be great. I can't wait, you know?
Yeah. I thought it would have been more impactful from a story standpoint had it been Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier. That relationship was everything to, besides his relationship with Peggy Carter, his girl, that relationship was everything to Steve Rogers, the character. And they kind of glance over that to a certain extent, which is fine. But I thought that would have been a more impactful ending had they kind of come together, and maybe he was more involved in this, in the Steve Rogers side of things. Maybe, I don't know. You see him a couple times, and maybe says a couple things, but I guess they're trying to force the importance of Anthony Mackie's role in where we're going is more important than Sebastian Stan's role going forward, and that's fine. But it just seemed a little disingenuous to the character of Steve Rogers to not have Bucky Barnes. I mean, really, they do. The only moment they have that's of importance with him is where Captain America is fighting Captain America, and and they have that Martha, Bucky's alive moment, you know, and they stop fighting, and that's what they all bond over. I just kind of thought that, well, he's only known this guy since the Winter Soldier, and they're just kind of friends in the Avengers. It's not a as personal as the other relationships were. But I can see him worthy of being Captain America. Representing.
Yeah, I think that's
what
part
the
of
shield's
it.
about and all that. I've seen thrown out there. It's like, well, isn't his current wings more powerful than the shield? Well, what if he's just like, I'm good. I've got the wings. I mean, I'm good with that. You can keep the shield. But again, it's more about what it represents. And so the big question is, where do they go from here? Thor has retired from being king of Asgard. He does not die, however. Cap and Thor do not die. Thor hands the kingdom of Asgard to Valkyrie, Tessa Thompson, so she'll be the Thor character going forward, even though Thor's still going to be in this. I bet they went to Chris Hemsworth and like, hey, man, so do you want to keep doing these or what? And he's like, you know what? Look at the other films I've made. Yeah, I want to keep doing that. I want to keep doing Thor. And so maybe Asgardians of the Galaxy is a thing from now on, or Guardians of the Galaxy 3. It actually makes me wonder what the Guardians 3 script is or was, considering James Gunn wrote it right after Volume 2. How does that change now with the events of this? Did he know about the events of this before writing it, or how's that going to change? I don't know. But yeah. So where do they go from here? What does the Disney Plus slate look like? We know we have a Black Widow show. Guess this confirms that will be or not a Black Widow. We have a Black Widow movie. I guess this confirms that will be a Black Widow prequel movie.
Right.
And we have a Scarlet Witch / Vision show. Really glad God. Vision didn't show up in this at any point because I'm done.
We got to get that out. I'm so beaten by Vision.
I'm beaten by that. We've got a Loki show too, and I've heard that this Loki show could be, with this time travel element added, this could be an alternate timeline version of Loki, or a pre.
Yeah, that's what you gotta assume.
Or a pre Tesseract version of Loki from Avengers 2012.
And then there's and they've got a Bucky Cap, Sam Wilson Cap show.
Yeah, that's what
as well.
a Winter Soldier Falcon
really
show.
Cool.
So if he's Falcon in that, is that show gonna be, take place between the time of Winter Soldier and Civil War or something? Or
he'll be Captain America.
I'm gonna call it right now that is actually a Captain America show. Yeah. They just didn't want to call it that until this movie came out.
Exactly.
Maybe, hopefully so. That'd be awesome. And so, where do they go with Avengers? We know that there's probably not going to be another Avengers movie until at least 2023. Is the earliest I've heard. They're waiting until Spider-Man Far From Home comes out, and they're supposed to announce the next release slate for the next phase of the MCU. I personally would like for them to try and cross over X-Men, and for the next big arc to be Avengers versus X-Men. I think that to bring all those fans, all the X-Men fans into this, and for that to be the next thing, I think financially is probably the smartest thing to do, or bring the Fantastic Four.
And
I think there's going to be another big crossover. You know how they did the crossover with Guardians and Avengers? I think there's going to be another big crossover with some of the Fox properties very soon. They're just waiting for this to play itself out a little bit more, and to do that. I think that's inevitable, but my dream scenario for the next arc of Avengers is A versus X for sure. What about you guys? Or Galactus maybe? That's another big villain aspect maybe.
Yeah. No, that'd be cool. I'm down with that. I'm glad we're taking a break from the Avengers. I mean, if they follow the path that they've kind of set out for themselves, now they'll spend the next 3 or 4 years building towards whatever the next team up is, right? Like you get another Spider-Man movie in, you get another Black Panther movie, a Captain Marvel, an Ant-Man, and just kind of build those and whatever they're going to do with Captain America, and then move into the next team up. I'd be thrilled to have X-Men. I know they've routinely said, "Oh no, X-Men's not coming anytime soon." But of course, that feels like a smokescreen or whatever. That we'll get that sooner rather than later. But they've got plenty to do with the remaining characters. And then, I mean, if Thor is just going to be part of the Guardians, like, bro, give me 10 of those. I'm in. Thor plus Rocket is my favorite part of whatever Infinity War. Gosh, I love it. And he fits the very like the galactic sort of feeling of the Guardians of the Galaxy. I mean, he fits that tone really, really well. And so you watch Ragonk, and it's such an easy transition to me to be like, oh, he will fit so beautifully with Guardians. That's going to be awesome. I hope that's what Guardians 3 is we get a lot of Thor in that. That's a perfect match.
I'm willing to bet that James Gunn knew exactly that Thor was going to be a part of the Guardians before he was fired and then brought back. So I'm willing to bet that Chris Hemsworth has another really, really funny movie ahead of him with Guardians 3, and he's going to be a part of the Guardians. And yeah, I think coming out of this movie, I'm more excited about Guardians 3 than any other string of the bunch here because Chris Hemsworth is in it and he's fantastic. So I can't wait for Guardians 3.
Not nearly enough Groot in this. Groot is my favorite Marvel character, and I can't believe they can resist putting Groot in everything because the marketability, the comic relief, everything. And I realized he was one of the.
Right.
It would be. It's amazing that character works at all, and I just want more Groot. I think they could spin Rocket and Groot off into its own franchise and make a ton of money. But the way they're building...
I don't want to ruin anything for the audience here, but I've heard that Groot is going to show up in the final act of Hobbs versus Shaw.
Oh, I'm excited.
Right.
We know Ben's involved. So, you know what I was thinking? Now that they do have the Fox rights and everything, and they've had them for... they've known they were going to have them for a year or so. I really thought we were going to get some kind of holy crap Fox moment. Imagine at the end of this if, like, Cap is just sitting on the bench and he looks across the pond and nods or winks at, like, and it's just Jackman, like, over there, or Logan from Wolverine. And that would have broken the freaking world if they introduced bringing back Logan into this, not only into the MCU, but bringing the character back, and to end it that way and look forward. I think that would have been like the thing that just completely put this thing over the top. But I'm sure that's to come, right? Yeah. I'm sure they're gonna convince him to come back. They got a $50 million on the table for him to come back. I'm sure,
Kent, to your point, I would have put money as of a couple of days ago. I would have put money that the post-credit scene was a bunch of scientists scurrying and hubbubbing about like a laboratory, and then the last shot was like a skeleton or whatever, or like an X-ray of a dude, and then you could clearly see claws coming out of his hands. I thought for sure that was going to be the post-credit sequence, but I was wrong.
Yeah. Well, the time will tell. They've said they're going to keep Deadpool. That's what Kevin Feige has said. So I guess more R-rated Deadpool movies coming soon. And like I said, we'll see if they reboot the Fantastic Four, if they bring a lot more characters. They try to redo Inhumans, if they bring Nova, the Nova Corps along, if what other characters they can bring into this. Shane, do you know any more Avengers that are kind of the if we were to put odds on who the next Avengers are to be characters, what would we say?
The truth is, honestly, out of the Marvel universe, really, when you want to get into expanding Avengers, you really do have to look into the Fantastic Four and the X-Men. I can't, off the top of my head, name any Avengers. Nova, as you said, it will be a great addition, and there are like a few others here or there. I mean, I would love to see Ghost Rider come back in, and I think Sony owned the rights for that, or maybe it was Fox, but I'd love to see like a reiteration of Ghost Rider. I'd like to see a retcon of Venom. Let's just kind of skip right past that Tom Hardy movie and pretend that didn't exist and see kind of Venom come back into the Avengers. But yeah, if you want to talk about exciting additions to the Avengers, you're looking at the X-Men, and you got to start getting into all those characters. So let's see what they're going to do with the recasting of X-Men, and that I feel like that should be the next logical phase for phase 4, phase 5, whatever. Let's get those guys into the Avengers, and then we'll come up with something big and cool.
We need a She-Hulk movie at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. She would be, pun intended, she would be cool. Like, that would be a kind of an interesting tidbit there. But She-Hulk and Hulk are they're very tied, so I feel like in order to do that, you're going to have to spin her out of a Hulk movie, and I don't necessarily feel like, we all kind of talked about it a moment ago. I feel like Marvel isn't really that interested in making a Hulk movie, so I don't know. But yeah, let's see if we can get the Fantastic Four in there. That would be a cool kind of surprise for Phase 4, right?
That would be awesome. And I would like Spider-Gwen to be involved, the female Spider-Man. I think that'd be a really cool reveal in the next Spider-Man series, is to get Spider-Gwen. I love that part about Into the Spider-Verse, just a different Spider-Verse. If they could cross over into the Spider-Verse with this somehow, and they make the Spider-Verse like a real thing in the MCU, I think that would be really cool too.
Could you imagine like a 3-foot tall Spider-Ham?
Yeah,
fighting
Mulaney,
next
voiced
to
by Mulaney. Yeah, like a real.
Yeah, exactly. That would be awesome. Now I'm thinking about it. Oh man, that's what I want now for Phase 4. Just get those people back into the movie, and I'll be happy.
Exactly. Do we think that any of the Marvel characters established in the Netflix series will come to the big screen? Or is that exclusively, the Punisher, the Daredevil, Jessica Jones?
Not in their current forms, at least. Maybe those characters do, but I don't think any of them. I don't think they feel like that was a success. Honestly, not compared to everything else they've done, and not compared to what they expect from the Disney Plus shows, I think. Jessica Jones is pretty cool, maybe her, but Daredevil himself. Daredevil was relatively successful. That's very replaceable. Punisher's it's those characters might show up at some point, but I don't see them bringing those actors and those iterations back personally. But
couple more notes.
I agree with Brian there.
A couple more notes on just the ending of this. The funeral sequence with Stark, I thought was perfect.
Great.
Putting
Great
off
scene.
the proof Tony Stark has a heart thing, and good night, sweet prince type scene, and the camera shot of all the characters in black, and just kind of panning through them. I thought that was a great moment. And
for all the listeners,
end on Nick Fury was awesome too.
Mm-hmm.
For all the listeners there, because I had to look it up after the movie as well, the camera kind of lingers on a young man towards the end of the shot. He's about 13, 14. That is the kid from Iron Man 3.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Which is cool.
I didn't recognize it because he's like 9 in Iron Man 3, and now he's like 15 years old. Yeah,
I had to use that de-aging technology on him to make him recognizable.
Yeah, make him a young kid again.
Okay, so that's this. It's fan servicey, but it's fan servicey for people who know and love these movies. It's not
Avengers
necessarily,
is, right?
yeah, it's not necessarily a comic book nerd type of film. It really just took almost every risk it could possibly take, I thought, and every risk seemed to have paid off, minus Professor Hulk. And that is extremely impressive. I'm under the assumption that if they made another one of these, I don't know if it would make as much money or more, but I think they could keep cranking these things out, and more people are going to be involved. More fans are going to want to see them, and it would not surprise me if the next Avengers movie breaks the opening record of this one. It would not surprise me if these just keep building. If they keep doing what they're doing, I think it's just gonna build. I don't see this thing plateauing anytime soon. And maybe the absence of Robert Downey Jr. affects that, but that's really all you're losing at this point. They could bring back any of these characters. They could bring back Steve Rogers. Thor's still around.
Right.
We're gonna have Black Widow movie. So everything's on the table. I'm not as excited about Captain Marvel as I want to be. I thought this film would be a really, that Captain Marvel would be the intro, but this movie would really show us who she was in the scheme of the MCU and going forward. It kind of does. I mean, but she is in the beginning and she flies away, and when they mention, there's, this Thanos thing is happening all around the galaxy, or all around the universe, because he wiped out half the universe. And she's like, all right, well, y'all aren't as important as the rest of the universe, so I'm out, and she leaves. I had forgotten about her in this movie. Like, I completely, 2 hours go by without seeing her, so I was like, totally forgot. So when she comes back, I thought that payoff was awesome. That worked for me. I was like, I completely forgot about her. I thought that was a, hey, remember me kind of thing. And when she takes down the ship, it's so awesome and epic. But I just don't know what she offers other than, hey, I'm freaking powerful and I'm like Superman, basically. Where do we go from here? So who are the Avengers? Who are the Avengers now? Right? We've got Captain Marvel. We've got Scott Lang. We've got I guess Scarlet Witch is still involved to a certain degree, but let's just say the most charismatic characters, other than maybe Chadwick Boseman and Tom Holland, that's kind of who your marketing material should revolve around going forward, right? Who are your big three going to be going forward, right? Who do you think? It's Captain Marvel, Black Panther, and Spider-Man, right?
Yep, that's it. Yep.
I mean, I do believe they are making a sequel to Doctor Strange, so he's going to be a part of the Avengers.
I don't care. I honestly wanted him to be done after this, but
yeah, I mean, whether he's a big part or not, I'm just saying they are making a sequel, I believe, so he's going to be a part of the Avengers there. Now I'm trying to think who else, but
Guardians, but.
Right, the Guardians, but I think that this is a nice branching point that they can kind of go off and do their own thing again, Yeah,
Ant-Man and the Wasp are both in it. There's plenty. Hawkeye could still come around if they want somebody to shoot arrows or something. Good. They used him well in this movie, by the way. Did a pretty good job with him. But look, there's no. You can call on all of these characters to bring them back if you need to, but yeah, that's the main class, right? Is Captain Marvel, Black Panther, Spider-Man, and then whatever else. Doctor Strange. It doesn't matter. Whoever else. Doctor Strange, Ant-Man, Wasp. It doesn't matter. Those three are your big ticket money makers moving forward, and they'll be I imagine they'll be the focus. Maybe Captain Marvel zooms off into other galaxies and worlds and stuff every now and then, because they do have to figure out the scale of power with her. But otherwise, it's that's who it is moving forward.
All right. Anybody have any closing thoughts? Things that we didn't touch on in this before we hit grades?
No, I'm good.
Okay. I'm going to grade this one out at an A. The difficulty level was incredible. Like I said, this movie was everything I did not expect in all the best ways, and so I give it an A for Endgame. What about you guys, Brian?
Yeah, it's an A+ for me. It's probably an A as a movie, but as an achievement, I don't know, that bumps it up a notch for me. I said somebody afterwards, I was like, I don't. It's certainly not a perfect movie, but it may be the perfect comic book movie, perfect Avengers movie for sure. It's just an unbelievable. It's unbelievable what they were able to do with it, and having all these really great. These great new moments and tied in very seamlessly with the nostalgic moments and the callbacks, and to balance things like on your left with with Cap getting the control of Mjolnir and Iron Man's his arc over the course of 22 movies. I mean, it's really incredible what they were able to do. So it's an A+ for me. What about you, RB?
It's an A for me.
Okay.
Sorry, my headphones unplugged right as I went to say. A for me. That's it. Shane, what about you?
Yeah, I would absolutely agree. It's an A. I mean, I have a few very, very small minor quibbles with this movie, but to Kent's point and to Brian's point, the juggling of balls in this movie was so great. I mean, there were so many things you had to do and couldn't mess up in this movie that it was incredible what they were able to pull off, and it's an A. And I just feel like anything you might have wanted from this movie, you got it. And the filmmakers, Marvel, Disney, the Russo brothers, everybody should be commended here. This was a stunning success.
Absolutely. Might not ever be touched. From a box office perspective, I can't believe it was as good as it was critically. I thought to a certain extent that most people would be turned off by the 3-hour runtime, the lack of context, but this seems to be winning over almost everybody that sees it, and that's extremely impressive given the circumstances. So, let us know what you think of our review. Let us know what you thought of Avengers Endgame. You can reach out to us on social media at Mad About Movies on Twitter. Find us on Facebook and Instagram as well. And let us know what you thought. Give us a follow. Shoot us an email. Our website's madaboutmoviespodcast.com. All of our episodes are archived on our podcast. If you're a first-time listener, we've got 500 episodes. I think only the first 200 or so are listed in the iTunes feed. So anything far back you want to find, we have a search function on the website that should help you out there. And a lot of content. We've done almost all the MCU movies since 2012. And we've done throwbacks on most of the ones we haven't hit. So a lot of Marvel related content out there. A lot of Piss Jar Cinematic Universe. If that's your thing, you can hit that as well. But I'm excited about talking Marvel again in 1 month. So I guess we're getting another one of these. It honestly surprises me with how guarded they are with the security and where they're going to go, that they just went ahead full force with the marketing for Spider-Man before this came out, Given how the reputation is, it wouldn't have surprised anyone. I don't think if they didn't even show a trailer until like this movie, for Spider-Man Far From Home. Maybe the part of the reason for my half grade, I felt like the stakes were a little less for me in my mind, knowing the movies that we've got coming out, knowing the characters that we got. So from maybe just the industry side of things, that kind of lessened the stakes for me. But we'll see, in a month, if this works again in a month. And, if Spider-Man Far From Home makes, $200 million the opening weekend, this thing is a train that is not slowing down anytime soon. That's for sure. Okay. So, Brian, where can we find you on the internet?
You can find me on the Twitter, bgill12. You can find my writing at madaboutmoviespodcast.com. We just had just right before this movie came out, I put out my updated MCU rankings. If you'd like to go check those out and yell at me about how wrong I am or something. So check that out. Richard, what about you, buddy?
You can find me on all the social media at Richard Barden, Bardon. Shane, I know you're on Facebook, right?
Mm-hmm. I
Shane
am indeed.
Byerley, you can find him on there, Bierley. There we go. Sorry, I can't spell verbally. Kent, where can we find you?
Find me on Twitter, Kent Garrison, KentGarrison.com. And you can find Batman Shane and all our Batman-related episodes if you want more from him. Thank you for listening. Next week, I believe we're talking Long Shot.
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
Yep.
And a romantic comedy. So if you're not seeing Avengers again, go see Long Shot and join us back here next week for our thoughts on that. Until then, we will see you at the cinema. Goodbye.
Bye.
Hey, baby, I hear the blues are calling. Tossed salads and scrambled eggs. And maybe I seem a bit confused. Yeah, maybe, but I got you pegged. But I don't know what to do with those tossed salads and scrambled eggs. They're calling again. Scrambled eggs all over my face.
They're making me the salads and scrambled eggs.
They're calling again.